Welcome to Rainbow Booth. It's a pleasure to have you with us here. Enjoy our videos, enjoy our big projects on parks and recreation centers all over the world. Thank you very much for coming.
Hello, everybody. It's a privilege to be here and go through this with you. Yes, I wanted to share one of the most interesting and challenging projects that I've seen since I started with Rainbird, and this is a new skyscraper that was planned in 2004 to replace an existing skyscraper in the same spot, so its footprint had to be more or less the same. But this one's twice as tall, so this one's 160 meters tall, 500 feet, and they replaced one that was 80 meters tall, 250 feet, and it's got 38 floors and 64,000 square meters of office space, which is about 690,000 square feet. But it's the top 3 floors that we're interested in here, because the big idea, or the great idea, was to put a garden at the top, which was accessible to the general public, free to enter. And you have to book a ticket, but you can go up there and just spend time in the garden overlooking London, or perhaps have a meal if you want to too. So then the concept was put together. So this was the final concept. This is the top of that building, which you can see. And the idea was to have two bars and restaurants and space in the middle of the garden, and then 2 flanking gardens at each side with planting and materials. And it was commissioned, or Willoughby Landscapes put the landscape contracting together, and Waterscapes were chosen to do the irrigation. It was going to be a complex task.
Yeah, let's take a pause there for just a second, Peter. I want to ask a poll question. A lot of us are very interested in rooftop gardens, and this is a rooftop garden, but it's also it's a sky garden as it's called. And so I want to kind of just get some people's opinions here. So in your opinion, there's no right or wrong answer to this, just a challenge. What is the largest challenge of installing a rooftop garden? Is it the structural engineering involved to house the garden, plant material and plant selection, water supply and irrigation scheduling, or the logistics and general installation to get the materials to the rooftop? I don't know if I have a right answer. I mean, Brittany, have you had experience with this where people have really talked about the challenges that they've encountered with doing a rooftop garden?
Yeah, it's funny. It just depends on what customer you're talking to. If you're talking to the landscape architects, they have their own set of problems, and then when you talk to the installer, they have theirs, and then the maintenance guys, they've got their problems too. So it almost seems like it depends on who in the crowd we're talking to. So I think the answer will be telling as to who's on the webinar today.
Yeah, absolutely. That's always the case. And Peter, I know you're going to be talking about this as we get these answers back, as they'll come here soon. But the unique challenges for this actual project and the logistics of it is going to be fascinating to, I know, a lot of us. So pretty evened out. It looks like we do have a fair amount of specifiers, technical people on the call that are giving the credence to the structural engineering involved in it. And I don't disagree, especially with this project. And again, I'm not going to spoil this. I'm going to let this go and let Peter talk about this instead. So I
was going to say too, Dave, really quick, these projects are so great and unique. I would imagine there are a lot of questions. We are saving those to the end, but I'll be fielding anything. So if you have a burning question, throw it in the chat and I'll answer it if I can. And if not, we'll save it to the end.
Yeah, that's a great point, Brittany. I do want to identify, if you're asking a question, please try to specify the question or the project that you're asking the question on as well. So we'll have 3 different projects, and it may be confusing if you're asking a question which project it associates with. So thanks for that reminder, Brittany. That's great.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Brittany. So yes, the challenges were numerous, and I'm going to go through some of those, and we'll end up with having a look at how it turned out. But firstly, to say that it's obvious when you're putting a garden at the top of a building, you're the last you're the last people to have the sort of hands on the building. You've got to wait for everything to be built before you can get to the top. So we'll go into more detail about that in a moment. And the logistics of working in London, and this is what Willoughby's and Waterscapes tell me. The logistics of working in the centre of London as an irrigation company and a landscape company were very complicated. So there's no parking. You've got to deliver just in time. So we'll talk about the soil in a minute. But the soil, for example, was delivered just in time and moved up onto the top of the building. It's really complicated. So it's got to be delivered in time, and also it's got to be robust too, because you've got 400 tons of soil on the top of the building with water being irrigated with plants, and that building's worth 1.3 billion. What's that? $1.5 million perhaps. So this is 1.3 billion pounds. So it's got to be robust, and it's got to be right. The bottom of the building, as I said, this building was replacing an existing one, and the idea to have a garden at the top, they wanted to maximize the space. So the top is bigger than the bottom in almost every facet. So all the way around, it's bigger. But that meant that it's concave. And just as an interesting side note, this picture here is taken from the ground. And there are times of the day, or there were times of the day, when that sunlight was beating on the building, and you could fry eggs, as some journalists did on the ground next to it. Anyway, back to the Sky Garden. So this is one flank. You can hopefully remember from the design. This is the right-hand side if we picture it from the front. So the idea was to have a garden with trees from the Mediterranean and South Africa in here, on the top to the bottom, and it has to be irrigated. So this is where they were going to put it, and of course, this alone presents its own challenges. You've got a spot here where the soil could subside, so you have to prepare for that. And you also want to use. You couldn't just put all your irrigation in one system, because you want to be able to control different zones differently. Because the bottom of the area here the bottom front gets more solar radiation than the top, for example. So this is how it was planned. So you can see the central area with the restaurants and what have you, and then each side on the left and the right was split into 4 different zones each. So each zone could be controlled independently, and for different planting reasons. So at the top of the zone 5 and zone 1, for example, that's where the bigger trees were, and then zones 8 and 4 were where the smaller sort of succulent plants would be housed.
Peter, when you're talking about zones, you know, we would call that like maybe hydro zones, you know, different watering requirements. So does that mean that they actually chose different irrigation material, or did they kind of blanket the irrigation, but they just know that they're going to water each zone differently? Can you elaborate a little bit? Yeah,
yes, I can. It's 100% exclusively drip technology. So there's no rotors here. Okay. In the ground. They do have a misting system as well. So the misting system takes care of the ferns, sorry, and then the drip irrigation takes care of the rest. And when I say drip irrigation, we're using drip line and also XP emitters too. So for certain areas, for certain things, they're using XP emitters. And what they also did here is some of the grey areas are sitting areas. So you can see they've broken up the landscape going down. That's another reason, another way of sort of blocking each area independently.
Great, thank you.
Well, and Peter, it looks like I'm cutting to the chase here, but it looks like you have to be pretty organized, not just from a logistics standpoint, but also from an installation standpoint on this. Yes,
I think just to mention some of those plants, just going back, some of those plants are over 100 years old when they were installed, so they were taken from places and put in. So they were lifted in, which we'll come back to, and some new bedding plants and things like that too. But some interesting things. Yes, going back to the installation. This is Waterscapes' sort of installation, and they were chosen for their ability to work in the city in tight schedules, but also their attention to detail in the plant room and getting the water, you know, up to the plant room, which is up on the 35th floor, I think. So that all the water had to be taken up, and there's a holding tank on the 35th floor. And then, you know, the attention to detail and excellence was key, because it's important, as we talked about earlier, for for a robustness point of view, but they wanted it to be reliable for many years to come. So again, attention to detail here saves a lot of time afterwards. So into the detail, I think these few pictures tell the story themselves. So moving things around for the installation, and it's going back to the interesting poll questions, getting stuff up to the roof was really challenging. So let's talk about the soil first. There's 400 tons of lightweight soil up on the top, and it was delivered just in time through the evening. It was all done in nine weeks. Every bag was taken in through the service lift and up the service elevator, and then specially designed equipment was used to distribute the soil on the top left-hand side. And then, of course, it was manually finally placed. And the trees were lifted up the side of the building, over the top of the building, and then down through the skylight and sort of picked up and then put in place by the engineer. So again, logistics of getting the equipment to the skyscraper and then getting it in was very, very challenging, I think.
Was there, sorry, I keep interrupting you, but I'm so curious.
That's good.
Was there much, and this was a question too, you know, being on top of a building and you've got water and plants, was there a lot of consideration with, you know, what central control or control system that you put up there? Did they install like soil moisture sensors and flow sensors? What measures did they take to make sure that we didn't flood this massive building from the top down?
Yeah, so they have a controller in there, and they chose a controller that can run all 8 stations independently or simultaneously. So that when they're irrigating at night, if they want to put them all on, they can. But they don't have moisture sensors in here. What they do have is they have a maintenance team that's there every day. So it's quite you know, managing the whole planting area and the equipment. They're there every day and they're watching the moisture sensing. So they're really hands-on with that, checking each area. It's kind of delicate, really. I think it's like a greenhouse up there in some senses. So they do a lot of that by touch and feel and by looking at the plants and seeing where they need extra moisture. So they do that manually.
I guess if you have 100-year-old plants, you're going to have top-notch horticulturists up there.
That's right. They're babysat, those plants, I think.
Yeah, it's impressive seeing a giant palm being lifted up the side 38 stories, actually higher to get it to the skyline, the sky roof, and planted in there. That would have been something to see in downtown London, bringing some palm trees for once, and then also bringing it up the side of the building.
Here's the building in context. You just go back on, and you can see it.
Yep.
It is right in the city, and you can see the gardens. You can see the gardens on the top. They did fix the convex and concave fronts with some reflection-resistant film adhesive, which they put on, and some louvers. So that was fixed too. But it's a really beautiful place.
It looks like it's pretty popular, Peter.
It is. I just thought this was an interesting slide. It's the 14th top attraction in London, top thing to do. It's, if you get chance when you're in London, it's free to go. It's worth having a look at. And really, the last few slides, as you can see, show you it in context. And it's used both for yoga sessions during the day, I see, for people to sit and drink coffee, eat food. And then they have private functions, night functions too, and the feeling and ambience there is just absolutely fantastic. And the views of London are absolutely fabulous. So it's a success, yeah, and a really interesting place to go.
That's fantastic, Peter. This is a pleasure. We have some questions that have come in, and we want to save them to the end, just to be respectful of time and keep this moving for the other projects. But Peter, thank you so much for that.
It's a pleasure.
I want to introduce next 2 individuals, Marisa Palacios and Juan Garcia. Marisa is the Iberia sales manager, which is what I learned today is actually the peninsula that Spain and Portugal share, and references back to kind of the culture or the kind of Greek referencing this area where the people that came from Iberia. So that was something I learned today, something that I'm passing on to everyone else. And then Juan Garcia is the specification manager for Spain. They're both based out of Madrid. This is another fascinating project, very different than what we just talked about, but challenges abound on this. And so with that being said, Marisa, are you ready to go to talk to us about this awesome project?
Absolutely, Dave. So thank you very much. Hello, everyone. It's really a pleasure and an honor to be here to share this project with you. Just to give you an additional detail about Iberia. Iberia is the name that the Romans put to our peninsula, but they conquer us. So since then, well, we are talking about Iberia, and it refers always to Spain and Portugal, as they mentioned. So this project that we are going to share with you is the largest ecological rebalancing operation in Madrid. Madrid is the capital of Spain. The name of the project is related to the Manzanares River. Rio in Spanish means river, and it honors the river that we have downtown Madrid, named Manzanares. Why this project is important? Well, M30, Madrid 30, was the first motorway that our capital had. In the 60s, this was a very important project. It was developed to help the circulation because there were more and more cars. At the beginning, Madrid was inside this ring. Okay, it's a ring of around 30 kilometers all around the city. What happened with time? The city started to grow, and the city started to grow outside of this ring. In the end, this ring, as we are going to see later with Juan, was an area where we had thousands of cars in both directions, north and south Madrid, obviously provoking a lot of pollution, a lot of noise also for all the people living around. And then our government, the town hall as well, decided that some solution should be implemented in this area. So this project takes 11 kilometers on the left side of this river, and it consists in putting underground, burying apart, as I mentioned, 11 kilometers of this M30 ring, with the main objective of improving the lifestyle and the quality of life of the citizens of Madrid, not only the ones living around M30, but all people coming downtown Madrid. Moreover, and also very important, you see here 6 green spots. So this park is also connecting these 6 green areas, which are defined in our, let's say in our country, like green lands for the city. The mindset in our country and also in Portugal about water saving and quality of life is very strong, more and more, because we don't have such a high amount of rain and water like in Central and North Europe. Okay, so yeah, this is let's say the introduction to the to this interesting project.
Yeah, I
yes.
thought this might be a good time to ask a poll question to the audience, Marisa.
Yeah.
And this is something that you've hit on a couple of these things, but I'm curious to see what people value the most on the call from what they see as the benefit from incorporating the green space back into the city. You know, noise cancellation and reduction, you mentioned that. People wellness in the form of wanting to be outside, providing lower stress atmosphere. Traffic still exists, but is not as in the forefront. And then the river life and enjoying the water. So take a brief moment to answer this question. Marisa and Juan, you both live in Madrid. I assume that you were here before and after the project. but what is it like before and after the project along this 11 kilometers? Is it many more people? Are people more social? What do you see personally?
It's hard to reply because it's a completely different area. So can you imagine a 11-kilometer park where you can walk, you can have a drink, children can play, you can also go with your bicycle, people can run, there is family time. Sometimes there are also concerts, there are new buildings. So it's a transformation so important that it's hard to say. It's all about wellness, quality life, fresh air. It's like a kind of a small new city within this big city. We have 6 million of inhabitants in Madrid.
That's impressive. It's you guys are going to love these pictures and the project and what you're seeing here. But the number one thing I'm seeing here, and this isn't surprising to me, is the people wellness, the wanting to get back outdoors. When I talk to landscape architects and designers, some of the biggest things that they're trying to do is get people to participate outdoors and to enjoy what we have with that. You mentioned, Marisa, a couple of things on the kind of the goals of this project. Can you elaborate a little bit more into that with what we're talking about here?
Yes, definitely. So the objectives and also the challenges, apart from the architectural point of view, from our point of view, was definitely increase how to propose something to increase water saving, control water, and also consumption in an efficient way. So the challenge here, which was taken by Juan, who is going to explain later in more details the project, the challenge was to think and to design a system to help to maintain and conserve water in a centralized way, keeping in mind, as I said, that we are talking about 11 kilometers and different locations. So this was one from our point of view, our main challenge at Reimer at this case.
Very nice.
Okay, thank you, Marisa. Good morning. First, I do apologize for my poor level of English, but I have the help of Marisa and Dave and Mauricio. Okay, the solution chosen to overcome the different challenges of this project was the IQ system with the following configuration. Is we used the 9 ESP-LXD with controllers for decoders, installed through the whole park in different sites for integrate more than 700 bulbs. Really, currently the number of bulbs are more than 800 because we have integrated isolated areas without cable with 9 volts TVO system in the IQ. And in this moment, we have 9 ESP-LXD and 1 ESP-LXME controller for the radio network of IQ TVOs. The number of rotors and sprays, etc., is make a number of the number of emitter is very high. If I summarize the rotor sprays and drippers, is the more than 3,065 thousand of emitters. The total area irrigated is more than 765 square meters, and this area is the main area is along the Manzanares River, but there is an avenue, the Portugal Avenue, that I told in another moment. What was the really challenge? The really challenge was the situation of the irrigation network after finishing the landscape works, because in this scenario we need a single control was needed over a job performed by more than 50 companies, with multiple coordinating problems. When we have in a big area, we have work companies of contractors that, for example, need to connect valves, but the connecting this valve to the controller, this work make another company. The management, installation, and engineering management was the opposite situation to the project presented by Peter. Is in essential, is the opposite situation. It was necessary to harmonize valves, solenoids, to repair cable networks and wire to isolated areas. Really, it was a chaos for the conservation company when the work finished. In this picture, we have seen the final of the Portugal Avenue with a typical concrete system of Portugal that was integrated in the design of the park, because the name of this avenue, Portugal, for this the architect, the designer, makes a work with the atypical pavement Portuguese, and really it's a classic picture because the Portuguese specialist was built this area. And what is the result? The result is a large green axis that connects six other large green areas of the city, like Marisa has resolved this important result. Kilometers of trails and recreation space for the citizens of Madrid. This is one of the parts more visited for the citizens of Madrid. And for me, this park connected two areas of the city, separated by a large highway border. In the past, with the two lines of the M30 highway is separated. The M30 was a border, a big border, and now the solution is very important for the citizens of Madrid. The properties has been reevaluated, all the nearby properties, and for me, this park represent the victory of the green infrastructure over motor vehicles. The citizens nearby the Embryo Park is now new citizens in Madrid. Okay, thank you. It says the areas of near the Manzanares River, and is on one of the more visited sites of this park.
Juan, Marisa, thank you very much. I think Brittany and I can both speak that we want to come on a tour and have you guys take us around the park and show us some of this rich culture and this beautiful system that came out of this. Like previously with Peter, we did get some questions in. We are going to save those for the end. Thank you for those. I do see people are kind of identifying the projects that they're asking those questions. If we don't answer them today, we will get to those questions, and we will have one of us on this call or this webinar to get back with you and answer your questions. So I'm happy to introduce. Thank you, Marisa. I'm happy to introduce Mauricio Ibarra. He is our senior area manager for Mexico, and he's going to talk to us about his project that he's been a part of more recently, and wants to share with us some of the challenges and results and solutions that came from that.
Thank you, Dave, and good morning, everyone. Good evening, good night, some of you guys. Thank you for being here. I'm so glad to have the opportunity to share my experience and learn what I learned during the project. It might come in handy for your next project, and hopefully it will. This last project is located in Cabo, in Mexico. It's really popular for the US and some Europeans, as Cancun is in the other side of Mexico. This is a really nice project, and we chose this because at the conception of the project, the developers wanted to create a peace state of mind for guests. As you can see in the picture on your screen, they try to they increase or maximize the foliage at the development, throughout the development. The idea is for you, if you're at the beach, try to reduce all structural or construction visibility. So the only way to reduce the visibility of construction and hardscape is to add foliage or greenscapes, green areas. So we had some challenges in the project. It's really interesting, but it's really good learning. Some of the challenges we have are
Marisa, before we get into that, I do want to ask a poll question really quick, and I'm going to cycle back to this page for just a second.
Sure.
It's not our intent. I should have put this, maybe Robert should have put this in the dialogue, but it's not our intent to make you schedule your next 3 vacations to the UK and Madrid, and then also down to Mexico. But that's what I want to do, and I know a lot of us are like, yeah, I want to be on the beach there and enjoy this. So let's ask a poll question really quick. You know, because obviously there was a lot of thought in the end user what happened here. So from your point of view, what is the most impressive landscape feature at this resort? Is it the use of native plants and how they tried to make you feel like the wilderness around it, the views with vegetation, not expansive concretes, privacy? Or is it the grading to be done so that as you're looking at this project, and a spoiler alert, there will be some additional views of just how impressive that is. But you know, again, I'm going to pull Brittany in here and Mauricio. You know what? If for me, it's going to be the privacy. Absolutely, I feel like if I came to this resort, it'd be the privacy for myself.
Man, I don't even know where to begin. The whole site's impressive. Designing right on the beach is always super challenging. It's just so tough on anything you install, and then it clearly looks like we've got some very interesting soil situations here and the elevation. I don't know. This project's super exciting. I don't really know how to decide. I'm excited to hear about it though.
Yeah, Mauricio, you'll definitely be able to kind of tell us and show us some of these pictures as we go through this. We should get some answers back here, and the poll's just closing now. But the views, I'm not surprised. We started off this presentation with an impressive view of what we can see, and there's not a bad look here when it comes to that. So I'm going to close down. We're going to continue on with the presentation, and let's talk about some of those challenges, solutions that you started to hit on, Mauricio.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Yes, actually, one of the policies that the state had on the developers is that they needed to use as much as possible as native plants. So what they did, because obviously it's a beachfront property, there's not as many as vegetation at the beachfront. They went to the desert, the local desert, and they grabbed all the vegetation, native vegetation, and brought it over to the project. But the thing is with this native foliage or vegetation is that it's not sand resistant, and we put it at the beachfront. Those were one of the challenges we have. In the picture on your left, you see it's a rooftop. And let me go back to the picture on the right. Every room, they try to reduce the, as I mentioned, visual restrictions or structural obstacles for you. The idea here is that you're at your room deck, they're all suites, and you're at the deck, you only see green areas and the beach. You don't see guests, you don't see walk paths, you don't see other guests. Well, they try to reduce the possibility as much as possible. At the same time, you don't see any AC fans, installations on rooftops. The idea is to create that view, that openness that you're out in the wild, at the beach actually. And going back to the picture on the left, you see some yellow circles. The reason here is that they started using some spray nozzles, but we also have the higher altitude and wind issues. So whenever they try to do irrigation, all the waters was getting some wet on the upper decks, upper level decks for the other guests. So it was going to be a maintenance issue, cleaning issue, and of course the guests won't be that satisfied with the services. So instead, what we did a subsurface irrigation to maintain a healthy plant. And I kept the yellow circles because we had some rotary vent nozzles installed just to reduce or try to eliminate as much as possible salinity from the beachfront. Because as I mentioned, these are desert and it's not used to be in touch with salt and the sand comes from the beach. So it became, plants were started to die. So those were one of the main concerns, and of course operative cost reduction issues for the future. So what we do, it was trial and error. They do irrigation, secondary irrigation. Primary irrigation is for maintenance, for having a healthy plant, and secondary irrigation is just to reduce salinity every 10 to 12 days for a short period of time.
I'm really glad you're bringing this up, because I think this is it's a very difficult problem that I think a lot of designers have when you're doing beachfront property. I know, like locally, there's a really new building that went in. It was beautiful. They picked great plants. I could tell they did their best, but like 3 months later, they ripped them out and they they put fake plants in concrete in because just nothing was working. So I'm just assuming they did drip. You said they did RVANs. That was for wind or rotary nozzles.
That was
okay, and then okay.
That was for two things. Used the same pipeline that we use for the subsurface, which is a smaller diameter, and the wind protection that we have with the rotary vent nozzle, and it's only used at higher distances, 7 meters. And just to reduce salinity.
And you said it was just trial and error. There's no science behind it. It was just how many times do we have to run this to make sure these plants stay alive?
We started doing 5 days, then we move up 1 day, 6 days, 7 days. Whenever we saw stress on the plan, we just went back 1 day, and that was our red flag. We'll never see this.
That's the official way.
Yeah.
Okay, great, cool.
And I assume too that we're using non-potable water on this project too. Is that correct?
It's in the process. We're in the
process. Oh, okay.
Modify it. That's a good point, Dave. Before, when the resort opened in 2018, in early 2000, late 2029 and 2020, early 2020, they are requesting all the hotel developments to start treating water by their own, because prices are going up for the use of potable water. Because before that, they do potable water for pools, for hotel rooms, for all the development. So now they're doing that modification. But for this project specific, we didn't use any non-potable.
Okay.
It was all potable.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We also have a lot of slopes from the point of connection where we have the pumps. We have more than 60, 70 meters of downgrade to the beach side. And as you can see in the images from left to right, there's like a 60, 65 degree inclination. We used a retention to retain the soil from not running off to the hardscape. And we did subsurface irrigation again, and we did it we installed it through the retention mat. We see some installation details. We have just go back one, and we use a lot of pressure regulator online and on the valve. We have on the picture on the very right, we have a large capacity disc filter, a 2-inch, I think it's a PV valve, PSV, and 2 inline pressure regulators just to downgrade to the drip irrigation systems. Can we move to the next one, Dave? And this is the result we have. Then on the left picture, they added rocks, they added more foliage, and that's the result of one of the views. So whenever you're walking through the resort, the walk paths, you only see vegetation. You don't get to see the upper level deck. So you get some level of privacy again. No, and that's the same effect. People on the upper level deck don't see all the guests walking through the pathways. And on the right side, again, there's a yellow circle. We're doing a secondary irrigation just to reduce the salinity from the foliage. Again, trial and error, 10 to 12 days approx. These are the views, some of the views. The picture on the right, on the left side of the picture, that's the door, that's the access for the suites. And whenever you get out of the suites, that's one of the examples I mentioned, they try to reduce the views of the actual structural construction for the resort. And what they see is all the vegetations on the slopes. And that creates, so whenever you go out of the resort, you don't see the next room, you don't see, try to reduce the transit of people, so you get to see greenscape, create that peace of mind of being out in the wild and just walking down to the beach. Pictures on the left are just some additional images of the walkways of what you get to see when you're walking throughout the resort. We got some rotary nozzles in this area just for salinity again, and mostly subsurface irrigation again. This is one of the views. This was the first images. This is what you see if you are at the really upper levels. As you can see, they try to increment green areas throughout the resort. One interesting thing here in this picture, when you see all the green areas are rooftops for some, the very first area, it's a commercial site. It's all commerce, it's restaurants, it's a playground for kids, it's coffee shops. And the next one are hotel rooms, are suites. Interesting thing about additional benefits of having a rooftop, a green rooftop, is that they are able to reduce room temperature by 6 to 8 degrees Celsius.
Oh, wow.
That also it's sustainable because they reduce the use of the AC system. Just to mention, Cabo has temperatures of 35 degrees, 45 degrees Celsius, 30 to 40, most part of the year, and they have a 60% humidity rate throughout the year. So it's really humid. There's a lot of usage of the use of the AC. So this helps reduce the room temperature by at least six degrees. So imagine if they're at 40 degrees, they're 34. So that helps a lot to the environment and the reduction of electrical power.
So a significant amount of controls were needed on this project from what you're mentioning here.
For irrigation, we have 2 LXD controllers, the color system, 3 flow sensor devices, and there's this is what we're using is the main line for the resort. All the resorts should be interconnected at all times. In case a failure happens in one side, we just open a gate valve in some other areas. That way we have water. We have water throughout the resort. Perfect.
Mauricio, I didn't know that you got a picture of me relaxing, the privacy view. That was meant to be private.
I wasn't saying it was you, but because you mentioned you wanted the world tour again. So
yeah, I do want the world tour. I have to visit each of these sites now. So that's the result of the webinar from my perspective.
Yeah, that's good. There is I like this picture a lot because this is what you see when you're at the room, and this high from top down picture. Well, Dave is at the pool there. They get the privacy. At the very left, you get to see the rooftop from his building, from his room. And then what he sees when he's at the pool, he sees green area, and then he jumps to the other green area, to the other rooftop. He doesn't see, whenever people get out of their room, he won't see the guests. So he gets privacy, the other guest gets privacy, and he doesn't see any structural obstruction. He gets to see straight to the sea. So obviously what he's paying for, what he traveled for.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Mauricio, thank you very much.